Hi, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Books and Beaches. So raise your hand if you didn't realize October was going to be as busy as it was and you have completely fallen up behind on filming. Yeah, that'd be me. So October has been such a great month for a bunch of different things going on. Filming has taken a trip to the wayside, as they say. And I know I say this all the time because it happens to me all the time. And priorities need to be changed. But October has been full of conferences at school. I had a benefit in honor of my uncle who actually passed away earlier this year. I have talked about him a time or two on my channel just because he was one of my biggest fans. He commented in a lot of my YouTube videos and always was telling me about the fact that he watched them, even though I didn't realize that he read even all that much. But so we had that, and yeah, just a lot of random different events going on each weekend in October. So I'm a little behind, but I would be hard pressed not to put out a video in October recommending you some great either thriller, mystery, atmospheric type reads to read in the spooky season. Because let's face it, most of my collection, especially the ones behind me, are mysteries or thrillers, and I have read some really great ones over the years. And while I may have talked about these at one time or another on my channel, I thought what a great opportunity to give you some recommendations right as we come up upon Halloween in actually a week from today. So I was going to attempt to keep the number under 5, and I started digging through my shelves and I was like, oh, I really want to talk about this one. Oh, I want to talk about this one. So I don't even know how many are sitting right here, but let's jump in. So first things first, everybody I think knows I love this author, and this is Riley Sager. But this one I think is one of the ones that has some of the best like spooky atmosphere is, stuff. And this is Home Before Dark, obviously by Riley Sager. And our main character in here is renovating a house that her family owned. Her dad actually wrote a book about it. So you get chapters in here that are from the book. And there are so many different times that this house will freak you out. There's a scene that has snakes in it, and if you know, you know. But I want to say, I can't remember if I don't think this was the first one he wrote under the Riley Sager pen name, which I had learned, Riley Sager is technically his pen name. Yeah, because this one is 2020, and I think there's a couple more that are older than that, but I feel like this is one I've got to throw like on my reread list because fantastic. I know that Ruth Ware is hit or miss for some people. I quite enjoy her, and I am almost through. I was looking at my shelves back there, reading her through to 0. Although I think she's got a new one coming out. But anyways, this is in a dark, dark wood, and the reason I picked this one to put on this list is because of the atmosphere and the setting that it's in. This is all about a bachelorette party. They call it a hen party, and they are in this house in the middle of the woods, and it's like a glass house. And I remember the description of them being inside this glass house, and it's so dark out that they can't see anything out, in, what's going on in the woods, but knowing that feeling that if somebody was out there, they could see in. So wanted to put this one on the list. If you haven't read this one, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I know she's hit or miss for people, but this one was a hit for me. Oh, where to jump in next? This writer, for sure, in these 2 books, was so great at giving us that spooky atmosphere, and that is Simone St. James. And I have 2 of her books here because they both, to me, stand out as probably the creepiest books from what I've read of hers thus far. So we have the Sundown Motel and The Broken Girls. I think about that one. I think this one is probably my favorite of all of the ones I've read by her. Very dark academia, ghosty girls found in places kind of book. Where this one, we basically have like a haunted motel, and we have a woman, going back and finding out what happened to her aunt all those years ago, and seeing that this hotel, seemingly comes alive. So both really great books by Simone St. James. I need to catch up on my reading of her. I think I have 1 or 2 left to read. but always, always good for a little bit of a creepy one. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did not grab a book by this author. And I know I have a copy somewhere. It could be loaned out to somebody. But anything by Jennifer McMahon always has, and actually, now that I think about it, they're down here. Here it is. A lot of her books have, you know, creepy, I don't want to necessarily say paranormal elements, but some sort of ghosty element to it. And so this one is My Darling Girl. This was about some weird things that are happening between a mother and daughter who were slightly estranged. But I feel like all of the books I've read by Jennifer McMahon have like slightly ghosty vibes in them. So that would be a really good one, or good author to pick up and have that. This book, I was so excited about this book because this is one of the very first print arcs, like actual physical arcs that I got. And this is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I loved this one. But granted, I've loved pretty much everything I've read by Taylor Adams. This one, oh, we've got this dark atmosphere. You are on, I forget what coastal town, but it's like off season. It is cold, it is rainy, and our main character in here writes a 1-star review and basically seems to be kind of like stalked, attacked by the author of the book because he is not happy that he got a 1-star review. And it goes from there. There are so many creepy things that happen in here, like the view that you get. I don't think it was a Ring camera, but I think it was like in like the peephole of the door. Definitely things that creep me out in here. And actually, it was this book, now that I think about it, in the very, I want to say, first chapter, and I think Audrey from Chapter and Converse and I talked about this, she talks about seeing like a shape in her bedroom. So she lives alone and she's seeing the shape in the bedroom. And I lived alone at that time, and I was like, I can't look in the dark corner of my room now without thinking of this. So very, very perfect for spooky season. I want to say I haven't read too many books by this author, but this is Karen Slaughter. This is Pretty Girls. This is my Sprayed Edges copy. This book is dark. And so this is one of those that I recommend with a grain of salt because it is dark. There's a couple on this list here that I have that are more dark than anything else than necessarily spooky, but a lot of heavy topics going on in this one, but I really liked it. This is a book I remember I read camping. So yes, I read a lot of books, you know, when I'm camping and I'm in the middle of the woods and people think it's wild, but you know, there are a lot of really weird things going on here, and you know, the things that they discover in this book, and yes, I am being very, very vague, but it was an excellent read, but it's dark. And it is. It's one of those that I don't want to spoil too much for you, and I always say that I think about thrillers, but that would be a look up trigger warnings book. Speaking of trigger warnings, but an author I absolutely have fallen in love with, and that is S.A. Cosby. In which case, you also should definitely listen to his books because Adam Lazaro White narrates his books, and his voice, first of all, is made for narration, but it's made perfectly for the main characters that S.A. Cosby writes. I want to say Razorblade Tears was the very first one I picked up. This one is dark. A lot of trigger warnings in here. And, you know, we have 2 different fathers avenging their sons' deaths. And, yeah, wild ride in this one. So I thought this one was dark, and I've read some of his others. And then he came out with this one this year. And I think this book is darker. I really liked it. We have a family who runs a crematorium, and a lot of shady stuff goes down. But this man knows how to write a very southern, atmospheric thriller that you don't know how everything is going to connect. And actually, All the Sinners Bleed. Same thing. So highly, highly recommend picking up an S.A. Cosby. I don't think anybody was shocked to hear me say that. Another author that I am just like crossing my fingers for something new to come out, and I believe she has announced a 2026 book. I'll put the cover here if I can find it. But that is Jennifer Hillier, and this is Jar of Hearts. I remember this one, and it has been forever since I've read this book, but I can remember this book just being a wild ride of a thriller. And we have a girl that had gone missing years ago, and her bones are discovered. I think it's her bones. her remains, her bones were discovered. And we are trying to figure out, is it a serial killer? Like, how was her best friend at the time involved? Another guy they went to high school is now, I want to say he's just either a cop or the sheriff. He's a detective. So a lot of twists and turns in this one. But Jennifer Hillier can write a mystery thriller. But granted, you knew that because it was on this list. So there's that one. Another book that, trigger warnings for sure. And this is another one that I loved, but maybe are we discovering I love books with trigger warnings? I don't know. But that is Ashley Winstead, and this is The Last Housewife. This one surrounds around quite a different type of cult, and I kind of want to leave it at that. But this book takes you on a wild ride, and it was girls that were connected in college, and 8 years later, they find out about someone that has died. And she kind of goes back to the college because she doesn't believe that them ruling this woman's death as a suicide is really a suicide. And she's wondering if what they got up to in college has anything to do with it. That'll be all I tell you about that one. But it's a lot, but so good. And, for me, spooky season is just about reading thrillers. Not that that's the only thing I'm reading right now, and actually I'm reading some really great ones, but it is definitely like the mood that I'm in. A couple more here. Speaking of atmospheric, we have Lucy Foley, and this is the guest list. I want to say this was the first Lucy Foley book I read as well, and this one is set on it's a remote island on the coast of Ireland, but this whole book is dark and rainy, very much what the cover vibes give off. And we have this wedding, and I want to say, if I'm remembering right, it is, did someone die? I don't think it's an end, and then there were none telling, if I'm remembering correctly. But we are trying to figure out who the killer is, because someone has died, and it's got to be someone at this wedding, because there is no way anybody is coming in or leaving. And the atmosphere is perfect. It's like a dark castle, like I said, all the rain, all the dreary. So great time for spooky. Another book that I read in the middle of the woods. And I read this one on my Kindle, but I had to pick up this copy because it's absolutely gorgeous. And that is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. And yeah, I picked it up because the end pages, I mean, hello. These are, like, the edges are gorgeous. The end pages are gorgeous. So, but this one is, we have a bit of a case of a couple different women that have gone missing, and one woman goes missing with her daughter. And all of a sudden, how many years was it? 11 years later, the daughter comes back, and they're trying to figure out what goes on. So I remember this one just being, dark and creepy, because I mean, all of these things are happening at night, and we don't know what's going on. So, like I said, I'm going to keep some of these short and sweet, but a must read. And I know a lot of her other books people have really enjoyed. I feel like I've picked up a few, but I am nowhere near like completing her list at all. And one that I think will just take you for an absolutely wild ride. I have several copies of this book because I like to loan it out that much. And so, for this time of year, if you want your mind blown by just like the absolute crazy psychologicalness of it all, I'm making up my own terms, that is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. Now, I just finished another book by her. We Used to Live Here. That one is here. This was great. This was very atmospheric as well. Very like creepy house vibes. But this one just made, like, dare I say, my brain explode. It is twisty and you're trying to figure it out. And then the ending just was, if you know, you know. I said that twice now in this video. But, how is everybody connected? Oh yeah, she goes on a date with a man, and then she finds out it's her boss, and everything happens from there. This is another book that I probably really should reread at some point. I've got to decide when I want to do a reread journey, because so many of these I would just love to reread. Even though I know I'm not going to be experiencing them for the first time, I feel like I need to. But yeah, it's fantastic. So those are some of the best ones that I've read. and I feel would be just great reads to pick up. And I don't necessarily think like spooky season ends at Halloween. I read thrillers all year long, but I think just like the fall and even going into the cold and the winter is such a great time to pick some of these up. I even have, I think it's still on my list, I need to read Shiver by Allie Reynolds. But I wanted to read that one in winter. So I almost have to like remind myself to pick up that one in the winter. One I think I'm going to be picking up in the next week. I actually got this book from a coworker, and I believe at least 2 of my coworkers have read this, and I think the vibes are like spooky immaculate, if I can say. And that is Never Whistle at Night. And this is it's edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Elst Jr. It's an indigenous dark fiction analogy. And I believe it's all about, it's a collection of stories that dares to ask the question, are you ready to be unsettled? Spooky season, hello. And I think it's the term of never whistling at night, which causes evil spirits to appear and even follow you home. And I think a lot of this stems from like stories from the Appalachian Mountains, which if you ever want to go down, a crazy rabbit hole, search up stories from the Appalachians on TikTok or, anywhere you consume your short videos. So I'm really excited to pick this one up, but I do not know if this is one I'm going to be able to read at night. This may be a day read. So that's what I'm planning for this season, and so many other thrillers that are back here. But my question for you today is, what is one of your favorite spooky or atmospheric thriller reads? Feel free to let us know in the comments below. If you are not feeling super chatty, go ahead and just leave me a ghost emoji. We can all celebrate this spooky season together. And yeah, I cannot wait to hear what you all have to say there. So as always, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.